Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to DSP versus the Internet. This is the sixth and final part for the 21st episode of July 9th, 2023. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the show very much. Thank you to everyone who has supported this show. It's actually been the most supported react show I've done in like months. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Let's get to the final videos from members. Here we go.
As light travels through space, it behaves like...
As light travels through space. I didn't even understand the first word. Includes paid promotion. Alright, let's see here.
a wave, but light is also made of tiny particles called photons. This is the paradox of wave particles, and it has completely revolutionized modern physics.
Okay.
The universe is filled with intriguing paradoxes like this, statements that challenge our understanding of reality and force us to question our deepest assumptions. These paradoxes have the power to change our lives in profound ways, opening us up to new possibilities and reshaping the very fabric of our existence.
No one floated because of these paradoxes.
Here are paradoxes that will change your life.
Okay.
Well, the lotto jackpot has grown to over $64 million.
It all started with a lottery ticket.
You got the numbers wrong!
If you go out and buy a lottery ticket knowing fully well that your chances of winning are 10 million to 1, it'd be logical to assume you didn't win. You'd also be justified in thinking that your friend, your uncle, his sister, their cousin, and their dog all have losing tickets. You're justified in believing that everyone who bought a ticket will lose, even when you know the lottery was fair and there has to be a winner.
Yeah, in fact, I believe that I was just reading an article recently. Here in Washington State, there's not been a legit lottery winner since April 19th. It's been that long, months since we had a big winner here in the state, so no one's won the jackpot yet.
Somehow you're justified in believing something you know to be false. This demonstrates that truth is relative. It depends on context, prejudice, and your perspective about the world. Because the truth is, the only thing you can prove with certainty is that nothing is certain. This is why people don't consider Pinocchio saying, "My nose will grow now," to be a paradox. His nose will not grow because he didn't lie. He simply made a false prediction. If we have a set of all sets that do not contain themselves, does that set contain itself? Imagine there's a barber who shaves all men who don't shave themselves, and only men who don't shave themselves. Does the barber shave himself? This is an example of Russell's paradox, a paradox that shook the mathematical world.
What?
These paradoxes playfully nudge us into realizing that self-reference can often lead to unexpected contradictions. Contradictions aside, though, we all want to be happy, but those who seek out happiness directly often don't find it. This is the paradox of hedonism. If we truly want to be happy, we need to stop searching for happiness and pursue other meaningful activities like nurturing our relationships or serving others. And only then can we be truly happy.
Yeah, but the truth is that's because people don't...
The pursuit of...
Pause, please. I pressed it. Because that's people don't understand what really makes them really happy. Too many people on planet Earth believe that happiness is based on how much money you have, how much popularity you have, how much power you have. I have found happiness in other ways. I really have. Since I've gotten married, you know, I've found happiness, true happiness, in other ways than I ever thought possible. I didn't think about it until I had it and I realized how happy I was. You understand? But then there's guys out there who literally will say to me, "Oh, well, you can only be happy if you have money or this or that." And that's why when I turn down a $50,000, they can't fathom it. How could you possibly turn that down? Because that's not going to make me happy. It's not. It may give me some temporary relief of stress, but it's not going to make me happy. I find happiness in other things. You know what I'm saying?
Pleasure, in its raw form, often leads to disappointment, while a life lived in service can lead to unexpected happiness. Deep down we all know this. Endless partying, decadent eating habits, and shopping sprees. We know these activities are never as fulfilling as we think they are.
That's right, they're
and
only
more often
fleeting
than not,
and temporary.
we're left with a sense of emptiness after the dust settles. It's called post-indulgence clarity.
Yep.
We see this paradox even in our relationships. Expecting your partner to completely control your happiness often makes them unable to make you happy. At least not in the way you want it. The reality is that to have good relationships, we need to be somewhat independent of them. People think that to find the right partner, they need all the options in the world to pick the perfect person, but in truth, having more options isn't always better. Just look at the fact that we have all these dating apps at our fingertips, and many of us still can't find a healthy relationship. This is the paradox of choice, and contrary to what we think, many options often leave us less satisfied with our final decision. I once watched a TikTok where this guy said men today see more beautiful women while scrolling through TikTok for 5 minutes than kings from the past did in their entire lives, and although it was a joke, he was entirely correct. But it's not a good thing. According to biological anthropologist Helen Fisher, the human brain isn't built to deal with more than 5 to 9 options for a partner. After that, the brain goes into decision paralysis, where it almost refuses to pick. So the next time you feel inundated by options, remember that less is sometimes better, and more data may not always be more informative.
Ah, it's very true. And that's not just about partner, but anything in life. If you have an infinite amount of options, how are you ever going to decide? Besides just throwing a dart at the wall and picking whatever the hell it landed on, right? You're not going to know. I mean, when you have limited options, let's say you're interested in buying 3 different cars, right? And what you do is you weigh and balance the cars based on all the criteria that you're looking for. Safety, cost, looks, handling, features. Well, you have 3 options and that's it. There you go. Narrow it down, judge. If you have 27 options of cars, what you're going to have is various ratings of good and bad, and one car might have way better handling while the other one has way better safety features. Well, what's more important? Now, that's a subjective question, but is it the objective answer that you're looking for? This is true. Less options sometimes can lead to easier choices.
Learning is great. Asking questions and figuring out how things work is how our species has gotten to where it is today. But learning is also a paradox, because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
True.
It's an amazing paradox, one that encourages you to never stop learning.
Sometimes, you know what they say? Ignorance is bliss. The person who sits around understanding nothing may actually have the happiest life because they don't have to think big-brained about anything. They just live in their lane, their simple life of, how do I exist today? I get up, I wash myself, I eat, I do things that will produce things that will allow me to eat and wash myself. I defecate, right? I get some sunlight, I do whatever I need to do to live, and I go right back to sleep. And that's their life. And they don't know anything else outside of that. Ignorance is bliss, right? They don't care about politics. They don't care about any of these big issues you hear about on social media or TV or anything. They don't care about any of that shit. All I care about is my life here, because that's what directly affects me. But so many people today now, because we have the internet, I gotta learn about this issue, that issue, get involved in this issue, get involved. 30 years ago, do you think anyone in the United States cared about a war in Ukraine, right? We were told about things like Vietnam and shit like that, and you were told to care because your kids were getting fucking recruited and shit for the army for it, right? But no one understood the nuances of any of these issues, right? Now, everyone knows everything about everything. Everyone's an expert on everything. But did that make our lives better? You know what I'm saying? Did it? I don't know. Did it? Maybe not everyone needs to be an expert on everything. Or maybe people should stop pretending to be experts on everything. I don't know.
Which is exactly what our sponsor for today's video, Curiosity Stream, is all about.
Oh, no.
Statistics, like Simpson's paradox. Here, trends that appear in a different group will disappear or even reverse when the groups are combined to form a larger group. In the 1970s, UC Berkeley was accused of gender bias against women in its admissions process. At first glance, the admissions data made it seem like men were more likely to be admitted than women. But when the data was broken down into individual departments, most departments had admission percentages that were significantly in favor of women. The problem was that a higher proportion of women were applying to more competitive departments with lower admission rates, so when compared to all the men in the school, it seemed like women had lower rates of admission, but when compared to the men in each department, it was clear that the women actually had a higher rate. This is, unfortunately, how misinformation spreads. It's usually not with wrong data, but with the correct data expressed without proper context. Because the reality—
Oh my god, now we could do an entire 5-hour React marathon about context. I almost feel like we should one day. I almost feel like one day I will do the great debunk. Probably not anytime soon, because I don't think my viewers are too interested in it right now. But I think one day we will do the great debunk, where I will sit there and I will watch every piece of dog shit said about me and immediately debunk it with context. Because that's all it is these days. The shit that people do to me and say shit about me is all out of context. And that's how they make it sound like something it's not, or do, so you know what I mean? When put into context, it makes sense. You know, the ultimate bullshit jokes and oh, he said a bad joke. Did you put it in context of what it was joking about, or did you just pull it randomly out of a video with no context so you have no idea what it is and you made it say like it's something that it's not? That's what 99% of the negative things about me are about today. So I would love to do that. Context is an insane paradox because it's just crazy how many people just take everything in life out of context. You know what I'm saying? And then they live their lives by that. There's people, I'm not even kidding you. There are likely tens of thousands of people on this planet who hate my guts and have no idea who I am or what content I put out because they saw something out of context about me and they just believed it because they're ignorant. That's sad. That's a really sad situation, you know. Anyway, I think it's time for another video. Let's continue. Terminator versus RoboCop? Now, here's the thing. I've heard some epic rap battles, but I think these get claimed on YouTube. I'll listen to a little of it, but I'm worried that it's going to get claimed. So let's just get a little bit into it and see what happens. I'm going to have to pause it a lot.
RoboCop versus
That looks nothing whatsoever like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Freeze! I suggest you use your right to remain silent before I show your robot ass some Detroit violence. I'm like an X-Wing commander, cause I stay on target. I take over these streets, I got my farmer's market. I wonder where the Cyberdyne research went, that they couldn't fix your funky Hans and Franz accent. They sent you back to kill a child, use your feeding distilled. They should have made a time traveling morning after pill. And I didn't.
They left off your balls when your suit was created.
I still love you, Alex.
Bullshit! Your sex life is terminated. Based on my detailed analysis of the lyrical structure of battle rap.
This episode of
I kind of don't want to say anything because I know there's people who absolutely love epic rap battles, but that was all right. Let's just watch this.
Real Life Lore is brought to you by Anchor Soundcore Portable Speaker Series. Click the link in the description for more information. Think for a moment about how loud the loudest sound that you've ever heard in your life was.
Oh God, I have no idea.
If you're hearing my voice right now after experiencing an incident like that, then it was nowhere near the loudest sound that has ever happened. Humans at various points in history have heard sounds so loud.
I heard a scary ass sound last night. So we were all, my wife and I and even Jasper were laying in bed, and it's like maybe like I want to say it was like 2 a.m. and we were asleep or half asleep, getting to sleep. And all of a sudden there was a really loud like how can I explain it? It sounded like a really loud like crash. But it wasn't like a thump, like hitting like it wasn't like something hit a wall or hit a building. It was just like a crash and boom, loud. And then all of a sudden we heard screeching tires, and then all of a sudden right after the fact we heard boom. So we know it was a horrible car accident. It was loud as fuck, and it was probably off on the highway near us. And when you hear that, you know what happened is someone hit something, someone else tried to get out of the way. I hope people didn't die. It was like blood curdling because it was loud as fuck. And once you hear the tire screech, you knew exactly what it was. You're like, fuck, that was scary stuff,
That they heard them from thousands of kilometers away from their actual origin. But before I can explain what the loudest sound was and how incredible it is, I first need to explain how sound is measured in terms of loudness in the first place. This image here is a sound wave. For the purpose of this video, all you need to know about really is the amplitude of the wave, because it's the amplitude that determines how loud a sound appears to be to humans.
Okay.
The decibel scale is what's used to measure the loudness of a sound, and it's important to note that the scale is logarithmic. This means that 10 decibels is 10 times more powerful than 0 decibels, and 20 decibels is 10 times more powerful than 10 decibels, but 100 times more powerful than 0 decibels. With all of that in mind, let's start building our way up to the loudest sound in history by beginning at 10 decibels, which is about how loud standard human breathing is.
I don't want to hear about all those others. I want to hear what the loudest sound in history is. So let's just go to it.
Australia, whose residents reported hearing what sounded like gunshots. It was also heard on the Indian Ocean island of Rodriguez, 4,800 kilometers away,
What?
whose residents reported what they believed to be cannon fire. Imagine if this time you were standing in Central Park and you heard what sounded like a cannon firing somewhere around you, only to find out later that the sound didn't come from near you at all, but rather came all the way from Ireland.
Whoa!
And it took a time of nearly 4 hours to reach your ears. The sound wave began to grow less and less audible to humans the farther it traveled until the frequency became too low to be heard. Even though the waves couldn't be heard by humans themselves past a certain range, our instruments detected that the waves generated from the blast circled around the entire planet 3.5 times. So the next time you turn on your speakers with the volume a little too high, at least it won't be loud enough to cause a global catastrophe. But if you want a good speaker to listen to some of these sounds,
Wait a minute, we missed it. Well, what was the sound? We missed what it was. What was the sound? Here.
or life afterwards. In real life, the volcanic blast was heard as far away as...
It was a volcanic blast, apparently. Here.
would be guaranteed to be permanently deaf for life afterwards. If the sound from the blast originated in Central Park in New York City instead, then everybody located inside of this circle would either be dead or permanently deaf for life afterwards. In real life, the volcanic blast was...
So... here it is. This is what we're trying to get. It was Krakatoa? I guess it was Krakatoa. Okay.
The volcanic island of Krakatoa in modern-day Indonesia exploded with a force of 200 megatons, a force so powerful it obliterated the entire island. I've talked about this eruption before in a previous video, but I didn't spend much time talking about the noise that it generated. Any sound over 194 decibels begins to distort into more of a shock wave from an explosion rather than an actual sound wave. But the Krakatoa eruption generated an estimated 310 decibels at the epicenter of the explosion. This force was so loud that sailors located 64 kilometers away from the blast had their eardrums ruptured. The noise was even louder though than this may seem at first, because a pressure gauge located 161 kilometers away measured a sound of 180 decibels. It would have taken the sound about 7 minutes and 53 seconds to reach that far from the volcano, and it still would have been enough to not only rupture your eardrums if you were standing there, but also knock the wind out of your lungs and shatter glass windows on buildings.
Wow.
It's possible you could have actually died from the sound waves impacting and smashing through your body. But even if you didn't, you would be guaranteed to be permanently deaf for life afterwards.
Now I'm curious, did that happen, or is it only if you're standing out in the open outside when it hits you? Like, for example, what if you were in a home with everything closed? I mean, it would still hit you, but isn't that completely, like, very significantly lessen the sound wave, right? I wonder. I mean, he doesn't seem to address that in the video. So, there you go. Loudest sound ever recorded was the Krakatoa eruption in the 1800s. Yeesh. All right, let's see. We got time for like 1 or 2 more videos. Let's find out. Let's see what's next. What?
Rocket launcher.
It was long trick.
Like a boss.
This is a great one. Texas man gets a $330,000 home for $16. This is one of the greatest stories I've ever seen. This guy found a loophole. Basically, the guy who owned the house declared bankruptcy. He took off. Then the bank had it. And I can't remember. I only watched the video once. There's something about... There's this loophole in Texas where if a house is abandoned for a certain period of time, you can file this form. It costs $16 and you can claim the house.
What?
He says he moved in on June 17th after months of research about a Texas law called adverse possession.
This is
Change my
not
battery
a
after this.
normal process, but it's not a process that's not known. It's just not known to everybody.
And this is what this guy did, right? It gets better. Everybody on the block is pissed because they paid like $350,000 for their fucking houses. And this guy comes in. He pays $16 for a house, so it brings the value of their house down.
Oh, yeah.
So they want him out of there, not only for that reason, but I'm also guessing because it's a black dude and they're all white. I'm telling you, it's like when I watch this, I'm like, this is the greatest beginning. It's like a pilot episode for the greatest fucking sitcom ever. Like the amount of characters that you could have. It's a fucking TV show. So basically what this guy has to do, he has to stay there for 3 years.
Ah.
And the people on the... You got to watch this video. His neighbors, they're trying to get him for everything. They're like, well, we just think he should pay for his house like everybody else. It's like, you know, what sort of a team player are you?
Lowry and her neighbors continue to look for...
Here's the one thing about this. He has to live there for 3 years, then he owns the house, legally, right? Does he have to pay taxes on the house for the 3 years? Because taxes are based on estimated property value. And if it's a $350,000 home, plus property on top of that, the tax estimation on that has to be pretty high. So he would have to, out of pocket, be paying thousands upon thousands of dollars a year to have that house. Do you see? Now, if he stays there for 3 years and he continues to pay the property taxes on it for the 3 years, then he owns it. I mean, he just made the best purchase on the planet, right? I wonder. But I guess the question really is, what is the property value and what are the taxes based off of? Hey, if the taxes are based off of $16 and he has to pay like $5 a year, holy fucking shit, that guy made off like a bandit, right?
Legal ways to get him out.
Or if he wants the house, buy the house like everyone else had to. Get the money, buy the house.
Just because what? You signed yourself into indentured servitude to these piece of shit bankers? One guy gets out of it. Doesn't have to become a fucking slave to these assholes, and you can't be happy for him? Because he found a loophole? Because he did his homework? If you read about it, you could have owned 2 houses. You could have...
Really? So, someone says he's not there anymore. Does anyone know what happened? Why he moved out? What happened? Did they just make life a living hell for him?
Sold your house and then moved into the other one for $16. Quit hating on the guy. I think it's the greatest thing ever, considering these bankers took this bailout money. They don't not only do they not know where, they don't know where it is. They can't say where it is or who even got it. And they're breaking this guy's. That was like $1 billion, trillion fucking dollars, whatever. This guy, $330,000. You mad at that guy? He's a fucking genius. You know what I would do if I lived on that block? I would give that guy a fucking goddamn, I don't know what I would, make him a bunt cake, whatever the fuck you're supposed to do. I'd welcome him to the neighborhood.
Two Heads Same Coin says improperly filed forms. So they got him on a legal technicality saying he didn't file those forms correctly, and they threw him out.
I'd be like, listen, dude, can you do me a favor? Can you read some more documents? And if you come up with some other shit, I would love if you could find a loophole that somehow affects my life. Like this, they're totally overlooking this guy's talent. You know? You know what's funny about that guy, that black dude who moved into that thing? If he was actually on TV screaming about how I bought a house for $16, half the people on the fucking street would call the 1-800 number and order his goddamn book. You know? And then if it turns out to be a scam, you'll never see the guy again, right? The guy is on your block. He's right there. Go over and learn from him. I don't know.
So I wonder how this is the case. They're saying he filed the paperwork wrong. If he filed the paperwork wrong, how was he in the house? How did no one throw him out of the house? How were there news stories about it and no one's realized this earlier? Or did it have to go to a court? Maybe what it is, the reason why that loophole, the reason the loophole exists is because it wasn't really a loophole, but someone jumped on it to try to take advantage of it, and then legally they said, okay, the reason it's a loophole is because we didn't close the law holes in court, so we'll go do that, and now it's not legal anymore, or something, right? I hate to say it, but sadly a lot of things like that can happen. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? For example, let's say, oh, they lied on the forms? That's different. I'm being told that he lied on the forms. I don't know if that's true or not, right? But here's what I'm thinking is, for example, right now, on the internet, there is an incredibly amount of content based on the premise of fair use, correct? There is. There's an insane amount of content based on the premise of fair use. Reviews, Let's Plays in general, gameplay videos, people who re-watch someone else's content, the React style content I'm literally doing right now, among many other things. Everyone sits on their laurels that it's fair use. It would not take much for one court case to be filed, for one thing to go through the court system, and for someone to rule that this is not fair use, and that fair use can only be judged via certain criteria, and that the criteria just weren't established yet, but now we're going to determine it. So, for example, it could be, it's only fair use if you're using 20% of the content. So you can do a review of a movie, but you can only use clips from 20% of the movie, and if you use more than that, you've violated the fair use law. Or a video game. You can only do a Let's Play of a video game that constitutes 5 hours of gameplay out of a 20-hour game, because if you do more than that, you've exceeded your fair use quotient. You see what I'm saying? Like, none of that has ever been hashed out. I don't think anyone really desires at this point to have it hashed out. It certainly doesn't mean at all that couldn't happen. It's just that everyone just believes that something is real. It's not, right? I'm being told the reason this guy got forced out, he claimed a loss for his $360,000 house being worth $16. Why'd he do that? I don't get it. Anyway. No, but that's the point I'm making, is a lot of things that I think we believe in that are just truthful or legal or real are not. That they're based on just assumptions, or the fact that no one actually went to legally hash something out. It could definitely happen at some point. Oh, he was trying to cause mass tax evasion. He was trying to cause mass tax evasion by claiming a loss and therefore getting out of other taxes that were unrelated to the house. Well, that's bad. That's really stupid. So Shlomo says, I've looked it up. This is all wrong. He wasn't kicked out for lying on any forms. Bank of America produced a deed. It proved that they indeed owned the house and it wasn't legally abandoned. There you go. So the mortgage company went bankrupt. In court, the ownership defaulted to Bank of America, and then they forced him out after the fact. I don't think we're ever going to get our answer. It was an interesting video, believing that this kind of a thing could happen. I think a lot of people believe in life, maybe I could get lucky too, and something like that could happen to me. But in reality, as they say, if it seems too good to be true, it's a bunch of bullshit. Or it won't last forever. That's another thing too, right? It may be good to be true now, but those things will never last forever, right? Anyway, all right. So everyone, thank you so much for watching DSP versus the internet for this week. I do want to say special thanks to the viewers. This week, the viewers were very supportive. We had a ridiculous amount of gifted memberships to the channel. Tips were actually good on today's stream. So thank you to anyone who supported this stream today. I really appreciate it because this is actually the only stream I'm doing today. So that helps a ton. I hope that you enjoyed the show. And remember, if you want to be a part of this fun, become a member today. You can be a person who nominates the videos for next week's show. We're going to have some 20 new people nominating videos for next week's show that'll hit that randomized playlist, and everyone will have that equal opportunity to have their video watched next week. All right, one other thing. I definitely feel that we should keep this show on Sundays moving forward. So I think next week we will actually do this on Sunday as well, and keep that momentum going because I think it's a better thing for my schedule. So Sunday moving forward, look for the thread for you to nominate your videos tonight. I'll actually post up those threads tonight on this channel where people who can nominate the videos for next week's show. All right? Thank you all. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Episode 21 in the bag. I'll see you next week for episode 22 on Sunday. Peace out, my friends. Until then, be safe. See you later. Bye-bye.